Not able to see the full.
Or do you see?
No, only half of us is seen.
Yeah, you can. Don't go for
Okay.
slideshow, brother. Just you read.
God of heaven and earth, you have blessed us with the works of your hands, the tall mountains and deep blue seas, even wonderful creatures to adore it, and have given us dominion over all of them. Help us to observe and appreciate these gifts that others may benefit even generations to come. Amen.
Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so.
Loving, merciful, and compassionate God, in your great providence, you have given us this beautiful creation. Lord, grant us the wisdom to care for the earth. Make us more sensitive to this, your beautiful gift, so that we may nurture it and save it for our greater glory. Amen.
Yeah, thank you, brother Anto and Jaron Francis, for your wonderful prayer. Respected resource person of this day, this session, Dr. M. Sanjappa, respected head of the department, respected staff members of our department, the neighboring colleges, dear students, and my dear participants. I welcome you all to this second day sessions of he worked on cytology and breeding of mulberry at the Central Sericultural Research and Training Institute at Mysore from the year 1977 to 1979. He joined in BSI Kolkata, where he served in various capacities as a scientist in charge in Flora of India wing 1985 to 1995. Thereafter, he served as a head in a Central National Herbarium from 1995 to 2001, and he served as director from 2001 to 2010 in BSI Calcutta. He also worked on legumes of India at Royal Botanical Garden, Kew and Edinburgh. He was working in a British Museum Natural History and the Linnean Society, London. So many other herbaria also. He was a CSER emeritus scientist from 2012 to 2015 at Mahatma Gandhi Botanical Garden, University of Agricultural Sciences, GKVK, Bangalore, where he continues as a INSA senior scientist since this January 2016. So sir has many credits in academic and research achievements. He carried out taxonomic version of the tribe Indigoferae and Leguminosa, and is a consultation of Indian legumes as formed the basis for the World Legume Database for India and South Asia. Both as author and editor, he was instrumental for Flora India volumes published. Having a good grasp on Indian flora, he was involved in many publishing checklists, both for monocot, partly for dicot. He is the only Indian scientist contributed to the world flora for the families of Tetracentraceae, Procodendroceae, and other families also. He has explored Alpine Himalayas, Northeast India, Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, Deccan Plateau, cold and hot deserts and tropical islands that has led him to discover 36 species new to the science and 3 new genera and 24 new species record from India. He has also explored and collected legumes from Australia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, Panama, Sri Lanka, Sudan, and UK to have a wide perspective on the group. He has initiated digitalization of specimens, botanical paintings, and literature in various herbaria to simplify the process for Indian taxonomists and to promote taxonomic researchers in India. Dr. Sanjappa and his research scholars revised the taxonomy of Leguminosa, Ericia, Aristolochiaceae, Iridicaceae, Lamiaceae for the flora of India. He has authored over 150 research papers and 5 books, and also edited Flora of India volumes, fascicles, and related works. He has mentored 10 PhD scholars. He guided 5 summer fellows of Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore. He has completed a taxonomic revision of Smithia species as an emeritus scientist from the year 2012 to 2015, and the taxonomy, conservation status, and the uses of endemic legumes of Western Ghats as an INSA senior scientist from 2016 to 2020, so as a gap in 2019. So Sir contributed as a member of several scientific societies and served as a steering committee member of a Species Plantarum, the project of World Flora and Pan Himalaya project, and also served as an expert on several national committees of Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, CSR, and the selection panel of various institutes and universities. He is on editorial board of Current Science, Redia, Nilombo, and Indian Journal of Forestry, and reviews articles for several international and national scientific journals. He also served as a chairman research committees of TPJRI, member of research committees of NBRI, BSIP, and IBST. He is also a member of Karnataka Biodiversity Board, expert member, Access and Benefit Sharing ABS Committee, National Biodiversity Authority, Chennai. Sir has received many more awards. The noteworthy award which was conferred the prestigious E.K. Janaki Ammal National Award for Plant Taxonomy in the year 2007 by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and many more awards he received. Such an eminent scientist with this virtual workshop as a resource person, I am very happy to welcome our resource person on my own behalf and the St. Joseph's College management behalf and the Department of Botany behalf and of course participants behalf. I welcome our resource person. Welcome, sir. Over to our resource person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You share slides, sir. Present now.
Now you can share your slides, sir.
Share screen. Your entire screen. Your presentation. So. Good morning, Dr. Francis, and all the participants. For your elaborate introduction of my outset, I should tell you, and you invite me to deliver these talks for the benefit of all the students and teachers. And I have been coming to St. Xavier's College for quite some time. And right from Father Matthew, Father Brito, I have been visiting and consulting your herbarium, both here as well as to start with. In the first lecture, I am going to speak my regular topic wherever I go is the floristic diversity of India, an overview. And this overview is possible only after compilation of all the groups of that documented so far in our country. Basically, every human being is a taxonomist. Or for that matter, even the animals are taxonomists, because we know what to eat among the plants and what not to eat. That itself is a basic identification and classification of plants and animals. This is a thing that we practice every day in our daily life. And this practice is a ever-continuing practice, because plants are one of the Earth's greatest resources. This is clear to all of us and to everyone living on the Earth. They are sources of food, medicine, and materials of vast economic and cultural importance. The plants stabilize ecosystems and form habitats that sustain planet's animal and microbial life. They are also threatened by climate change, the environmental factors, and human interactions mainly. There are estimated 400,000 species of vascular plants on Earth, with some % of them are yet to be discovered. But if you look at the way we are discovering species in the last 1 decade, it is tremendous. Practically every day there is a new species discovered in some part of the world. And these plants, both known and unknown, may hold answers to some of the world's health, social, and economic problems. Therefore, a full inventory of plant life is vital if their full potential is to be realized before many of these species and their possibilities they offer become extinct. In 2002, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity adopted what we call as GSPC, or Global Strategy for Plant Conservation. This was subsequently updated in 2010 with the aim of halting loss of plant species worldwide by the current year 2020. And you know what has happened in 2020. Anybody could hardly come out of their homes because of the COVID. So I don't think we will be able to meet the target that we have set. The updated GSPC includes 16 targets to be achieved by the year 2020. The target 1 of the GSPC states that need for an online flora of all the known plants. This is a very, I would say it is a Himalayan task. It's not that easy to achieve, but there are made all over the world by the limited taxonomy today. In our country, if any small place, like see, there is a well-known place we call it as Paradise in the Western Ghats, called Khas Plateau near Satara in Maharashtra, about 20 kilometers from Satara town. We have a plateau where the flora is unique. If you lay a portrait of 10 by 10 meters, you have so many species that are displayed in this slide. Not only this many, and these are also. Just imagine in 10 by 10 square meters, if you have so much diversity in a small place like this, India with its varied landscapes, altitudes, latitudes, longitudes, supports and sustains immense biodiversity of plants and animals. If you look at the biogeographical realms or ecozones in the world, there are 12 types practically, except the tundra region on the, you see the blue, light blue that you are towards the poles. All other landscapes or ecozones are represented in our country, in India. And therefore, India is one of the mega diverse countries, one of the 18 diverse which are demarcated in this world map in green color. India, being the 7th largest country and 2nd in Asia, situated north of equator, has an area of 329 million hectares, with Himalayan ranges up to 8,586 meters from the sea level. We have a land frontier of 15,200 kilometers, particularly north, northwest, and northeast, and a coastline of 7,516 kilometers, not only the mainland India, but also the coast island that we have, particularly the Andaman Islands. India is a vast South Asian country.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Are you presenting the slides, sir? But the slides are not visible, sir.
Oh. Raja, slides visible ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. Just 1 second, please.
ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ನೀವು.
ನನಗೇನು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. Now can you see? Can you see the slides?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
Not yet, sir. Are you presenting now? Are you presenting the slides now, sir?
No, they are continuously. I am doing it, but I don't know why.
Yeah, now it is coming, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir, now.
Now it's coming?
Yeah, it's clear. We are seeing your slides.
Oh, great. Should I go back to the first slide or I will continue? Of course, there's not much to see.
No
Okay.
problem, sir. No problem. Okay.
Now, based on the distribution of plants, India has been demarcated into 14 phytogeographical regions. The Trans-Himalayas, Western Himalayas, Eastern Himalayas, Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, Northeast India, Gangetic Plains, Deccan Plateau, Central Islands, East Coast, West Coast, islands, deserts, and semi. This is purely based on the plant distribution. This has been done by great Hooker, who wrote the Flora of British India, and subsequently Chatterjee, D. Chatterjee, and C.B. Clarke, and many people have modified this classification as and when more and more information came from about the distribution of plants. Now, you must be wondering as to why I am giving all this background, because this background gives you as to what kind of landscapes and ecosystems that we have in our country at the same time, and what is how this immense biodiversity that has been recorded so far to designate India as one of the mega diverse countries is distributed in these landscapes. Now, now you have seen based on the distribution of plants, the phytogeographical regions. Now, based on the distribution of plants and animals both put together, the Wildlife Institute of India, Roger and Panwar, have divided the country into 10 biogeographic zones. And these 10 biogeographic zones are further divided into 26 biotic provinces. I can share these slides for all of you. You need not have to bother about it. And these 26 biotic provinces today are distributed with rainfall ranging from less than 500 millimeters to more than 4,000 millimeters. And the temperatures range from 7 degrees to 24 degrees. And we have elevation zones or the altitudes ranging from less than 100 to 4,000, more than 4,200. But we have plants occurring almost up to nearly 6,500 meters. In addition to this, we have converted many of the areas, both in hills as well as in the plains, into agroecosystems. The agroclimatic zones in India are represented by 15 different types. I'll not go into the details because these are not greatly relevant here. India has only 2.4% of the total land mass of the world. Located at the trijunction of 3 biogeographic ranges, Indo-Malayan, Eurasian, Afrotropical. We are at the trijunction. About 9.77% of the forest diversity. Of course, this figure has been revised. Now it is nearly about 10%, because over the years, we have discovered many more species. So one of the 18 mega diverse countries of the world, third in Asia, and shares 4 of the 30 global hotspots in the world. These are the biodiversity hotspots that are distributed all over. What are these hotspots? Are they volcanoes or something else? So they are not volcanoes or something else. They are areas that contain at least 1,500 species of vascular plants. That is about less than 5% of the world's total as endemics. And it has to have lost at least 70% of the original habitat. This is the worst part that one can think of. On one side, we are proud of having a hotspot, biodiversity hotspot, because of its endemism. uniqueness, but on the other, and habitat is lost. For example, if you take the Himalayas or the Western Ghats or the Andaman Islands, and we have this situation today, and therefore they are at the same time they have large number of endemics that are present. So 30% hotspots, which cover about 2.3% of the Earth's land surface, yet more than 50% of the recorded biodiversity of the plant diversity or animal diversity are confined to these particular hotspots. Now, this is the distribution of hotspot. I will not go into the details. Now, coming to the biodiversity hotspots that are represented in our country. The first one is the largest one is the Himalayas, which we share with Pakistan, which we share with China, Nepal, Bhutan, and Myanmar. These are the other countries where we share this Himalayan hotspot. The second hotspot is the Indo-Burma hotspot, which includes the area of Northeast India south of Brahmaputra Valley and the Andaman group of islands, not the Nicobar, Andaman group of islands, what we call as the area that are islands that fall above the 10-degree channel in the sea, and some of the Indochina and region, particularly Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and these are and also part of China, southern China. So these are the areas which fall in the Indo-Burma hotspot. And the third hotspot, where we are sitting almost in our country, is the Western Ghats Sri Lankan hotspot. In fact, Sri Lanka and Western Ghats perhaps was a contiguous region which got drifted due to continental drift, and there the flow is not really much different except for few island endemics. The fourth hotspot which we share with the Southeast Asian countries, particularly Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Indonesia, is the Nicobar group of islands, which is south of 10-degree channel. So these are the four hotspots that we have, and the major chunk of species of plants, animals, and perhaps even microbes, which are yet to be not completely, even we have not touched even the tip of the iceberg of the microbes, because we don't have any survey like Botanical Survey of India or Zoological Survey of India. There should have been a Microbiological Survey of India. Now, before I go into the species diversity, I have given you the overview of the entire country, the ecosystems that we have. And now I will give you the range of diversity in terms of ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. I will deal with only briefly with the ecosystem diversity and species diversity in detail. But genetic diversity, I will not go. We have not contributed much to this, or we have not done much work in this, or for that matter, in most countries in the world. Ecosystem diversity, we have basically, there are the sub-ecosystems that are present. I'll not go into those details because my purpose of this is to give you the floristic diversity, but to give you an idea as to the ecosystem diversity. In our country, the major ecosystems are forest ecosystems, grassland ecosystems, wetland ecosystems, coastal and marine ecosystems, and desert ecosystems, which includes both hot deserts and cold deserts. Now, forest cover of India is another important thing which is regularly debated. There has been a continuous survey by the Survey of India to assess the status of forests in our country, or forest cover in our country. I have not got the recent or 2018 data, but up to 2015, we had the forest cover of 21.34%, and and tree cover of 24.16%. In fact, the requirement for any forest area, we should have at least 33.33%. This is an international standard or national standard set by National Forest Policy also. Besides important ecological functions, the forest ecosystems provide food, fodder, fuel, wood, timber, raw materials for industry, non-timber forested, or you name a thing, it is provided by, except for the fossil fuels, practically everything comes from the forest ecosystems for us. Invaluable reserve of economically important species and genetic resources. Without forest ecosystems, we will not be able to survive on the planet Earth. The grassland ecosystems, it is about 4% of the total geographical area. We have semi-arid pastures of the Deccan Peninsula, humid semi-waterlogged areas of the Terai Belt, rolling shola grasslands of Western Ghats, high-altitude alpine pastures in Himalayas. These grasslands, based on the composition of the genera of the grasses, like Sehima dichanthium type, or Dichanthium cenchrus lasiurus type, like in deserts, Phragmites saccharum imperator type, then Themeda arundinella type, then temperate alpine type, and ultimately the alpine type. Now, if you look at some of the grasslands in the plains, particularly in the semi-arid area, if you go to Gujarat or Maharashtra or even eastern Karnataka, you find savanna-like things like this. Initially, they were all grasslands, but they were interspersed with tree species which look like savannas of Africa. But this is because of the distribution of some of the species interior into the grasslands. Now look at these valleys in some of the high altitude Himalayas. Then these are the shola grasslands and shola forests that you have seen. The barren mountains that you are seeing, they're all grasslands, in fact. Very interesting grasses are there in these, and these are unique to Western Ghats. And these patches that you see, these are, again, these shola forests have unique vegetation, and these species grow only at that altitude, and in that combination or conglomeration of species which do not occur elsewhere down below or elsewhere in the world. Then we have wetland ecosystems, which are also about 4 million hectares, excluding paddy fields and mangroves. 1.5 million hectares are natural, fresh, and salt water. 2.6 million hectares man-made reservoirs, canals, and fish ponds, and 2,175 natural wetlands, and 65,000 man-made wetlands. And these wetlands have been, which are minimum size of 1 hectare, have been by Salim Ali Institute of Ornithology, and these maps are available. And you can imagine, over a decade time, many of these wetlands have shrunk because they have been diverted for various other activities, are polluted, or they have been, particularly those which are around the urban areas, have been converted into the towns or cities. Wetlands are very great importance. They have been divided into 26 Ramsar sites. Ramsar sites are those sites. A Ramsar site is a wetland site designated of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar is a place in in Iran where the first international wetland conference took place, and there, after the declaration, these sites were named as Ramsar sites. The Convention on Wetlands, known as Ramsar Convention, is an intergovernmental environmental treaty established in 1971 by UNESCO and coming into force from 1975. Now, I will not go into the many wetlands that we have. We have more than about 26 wetlands, or even now the number might have increased to 30 now, in our country, which have been declared as wetlands of international importance. Most of these wetlands have been overused for human activities and overexploited the resources that are present. But some of these wetlands have been now, which have come under the Ramsar Site Convention, have been protected, and many of these activities have been controlled. Now, let me give you one example of Kolleru Lake in Andhra Pradesh, which is there in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh. This entire lake was converted into the aquaculture lake almost, because all the areas around this lake have been converted into aquaculture because it was highly paying for producing fish and prawns through aquaculture. And this lake was polluted almost beyond repair. Thanks to the government of Andhra Pradesh and the Minister of Environment and Forest, Government of India, which took interest and restored this lake and showed to the world that we can restore our wetlands, which are very, very important. See, unlike other species, the wetland species, if we have to conserve, you have to conserve the entire ecosystem. If the ecosystem is not conserved, all the wetland species will disappear. And this is a restored wetland, or the Kolleru Lake of Andhra Pradesh. Another unique ecosystem or wetland ecosystem is there in Manipur, which is called the Loktak Lake, which is in Manipur, and it has unique one species called the dancing deer, or which is unique and found only in these island-like grass islands of grasses that you see. You can see these are all floating grasses which are found where human habitations are there inside, and now they have been shifted, or they have been managed to not to over pollute these areas, and because there is a lot of opposition for removing people from the ecosystems. Now, these are the 26 the Ramsar sites that we have. I will not go into the details of these, and these are very few are there in the southern part of India, as I told you in about Andhra Pradesh. Tamil Nadu, we have the Point Calamere Wildlife and Bird Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu is one of them, which has been declared. Then we have in Kerala, which is Astamudi Lake, Wetland, Vemanad Col, and some of these which are there in south, but majority of them are in the north, because the wetlands are well known in the northern India, particularly in the Himalayas and northeast India. The third one is the coastal and marine ecosystems. The mangroves, so important. 14% of geographical area in India is covered by mangroves. And these mangroves, all of you know, that they are found only in the estuaries of the sea coastal areas, particularly where the river meets the sea. But there are other areas in the islands where there are no rivers, not many rivers, but still in the coastal margin of the coastal areas, you will find the mangroves represented. 7% of the world's mangroves are in India. Then we have sea grasses. Sea grasses means a grass like angiosperms which grow, or flowering plants which grow in the, but they are very, very important. Like, for example, in Gulf of Mannar, we have what is called as the dugong or the sea cow, which depends exclusively on the sea grasses. And these sea grass beds have been eroded, and this animal disappeared. And unfortunately, there were sufficient sea grasses in the Andaman Islands, and they migrated there. And once the Gulf of Mannar was declared as biosphere reserve, and the sea grass beds are restored, and the animal has migrated back. This is the uniqueness of our Gulf of Mannar biosphere reserve. Then we have seaweeds, the algal, the macroalgae I am talking about. I am not talking about much of the microalgae, but macroalgae, which are very important. We have about 950 species which are being surveyed all along our coast. Then we have desert ecosystems, hot desert ecosystem, which are found mainly in the Rajasthan, Gujarat, Punjab, and Haryana. which covers about 2% of the India's landmass, and cold desert, which are found mainly in Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and a few in the Sikkim region. Also, you find the cold desert regions at the almost close to the Tibetan plateau. So these cold deserts are found at 4,000 to 6,000 meter altitude. You can imagine. Highest altitude, practically, they look like barren lands. But if you go and sit there to see the kind of plants that are growing there, they are very small and but brightly colored flowers. There, the temperatures are minus 45 degrees, and the rainfall is only 10 to 70 millimeters. So therefore, they are called the cold deserts. And the forest ecosystem, I'll not go further into the details. The major types of forest ecosystems are the tropical forest, subtropical forest, temperate forest, subalpine and alpine forests. And these four major types have been further divided into 16 subtypes by Champion and Sheth in 1968. And this has been revised by the Survey of India, Forest Survey of India, but this needs further ground survey of all the areas which are classified. This is the forest cover that we have today in our country. I'll not go into the details. Tropical deciduous forest. I'll skip some of those slides because I don't want to waste your time because they are important, but I'll not go into those details because only for it takes a class by itself. Now I will straight away come to, with this background of ecosystems and the varied landscapes that we have in our country, the altitude and the latitude and longitudinal ranges that we have in our country, as I told you earlier, it sustains and supports immense diversity. Since the establishment of Botanical Survey of India in 1787, with the development of Botanical Garden at Calcutta, the surveys have been being conducted for documenting our plant resources. And similarly, Zoological Survey of India was founded in 1960, and they have also been conducting surveys mainly for animals. And since then, till date, that means here I will say that till December 2019, I have not covered the 2020 because I'll tell you the reason why as to why 2020 is not covered here later. Now, if you look at the angiosperms, the largest group of, in terms of occupation of the area, the largest group of plants is the flowering plants or the angiosperms, which are now classified according to APG4 system into 416 families recognized, out of which 251 are represented in our country. Number of species recorded in the world so far in the angiosperms is about 2,95,383 species under 13,500 genera, out of which in India we have 18,800 species under 3,050 genera, which is about 6.36%. So this is a huge percentage in terms of total species discovered so far. And precisely this is the reason why we have, and we are, our country is considered as one of the mega diverse countries. Then coming to gymnosperms, there are 1,079 species. This, I would say, more or less, we have completed survey discovering most of the species in the world. In case we find some more species here and there are split some genera, existing genera, because of various molecular studies or taxonomic studies in future, it will not exceed more than 1,200 species or 1,100 species. So out of 1,079 documented so far, we have 82 species. Again, there are many of these species are in our country are used as ornamentals, but the 82 species that we have represent about 7.5% or 6% of the total in the world. Similarly, pteridophytes, 11,850 species. We have 1,307 species documented, which amounts to about 11%. Bryophytes, 21,215 species, and 2,786 species are represented in our country, which amounts to 13%. Algae, both, algae occurs in sea, in freshwater, in terrestrial algae, and epiphytic algae. So you cover 4 different habitats for algae, and we have 44,000 species in the world documented, 7,434 species in our country, which amounts to about 17%. But algae down to bacteria, the documentation that we have done in our country is very, very meager, because the specialists are the people to work on these groups: algae, lichens or lichenized fungi, bacteria, and viruses are very, very, very limited. And we need, for the last one, bacteria and viruses, we need a separate organization like Botanical Survey of India to document all the resources. Because we know only a small fragment of the resources that we have in the in our country or elsewhere in the world. So algae, we have about 17%. Lichenized fungi, till recently we used to teach the students as lichens, but now no more lichens are not treated as lichens. They are called lichenized fungi. All of you know that there is symbiotic relation between fungi and algae in this group. I have, for the benefit of students only, I have separated lichenized fungi. Otherwise, it should have been merged with general fungi, because it is a subgroup of the fungi. So for lichens, and we have only some handful of people to work on. So far documented 19,387 species in the world. And in India, we have 2,917, which is amounting to about 15%. And fungi, perhaps the largest group of plants that you are thinking about here. I'm sorry, not plants. The fungi is now a separate kingdom by itself. And 75,000 species in the world, 15,447 in our country, amounts to about 20%. This is just again a very small percentage that we have discovered so far. And not only that, there are many species which requires revision, because many species have been created or discovered for a long time, and no taxonomic revisions have been conducted. Even we have got a lot of new collections and new informations about these areas. Bacteria and viruses, practically there are only 1 or 2 groups in the country to work on this, because basically we worked mostly on the disease causing bacteria and viruses, both in plants and animals and humans. We concentrated on these groups only. The problem is that the wild species of bacteria and viruses, we have very limited work in our country and very limited groups which we are there, mainly in Hyderabad, situated in Hyderabad. The Hyderabad Central University, CCMB, the Cell and Molecular Biology Lab in Hyderabad, and another NEERI in Nagpur. And some universities have now come up with some labs, but they need more facilities because they need to do the molecular work in most of these cases. Now, you look at, so totally we have documentation of all the groups of plants and fungi, algae, bacteria put together, about nearly 5 million species. And these species, we have in India about 50,000. That means almost 10% of what occurs in the world or what is documented in the world are there in India. The largest flowering plant families are Orchidaceae, with 736 genera and 28,000 species. In India, we have, I'll show you, about 1,300 species. So this is the figure given in 2015. But in between, a large number of species have been discovered. Uh, in Asteraceae, the second largest family in the world, with 1,623 genera and 24,700 species. So look at the difference between these two families. In Archaeaceae, number of genera is less, but number of species are more. In Asteraceae, the number of genera is more, and number of species is less. The third largest family is the Leguminosae, which I worked for my life, and which has about 19,800 species in the world and 1,450 species in our country. So now, if you look at 2019 December data, which we have compiled both in BSI and ZSI, Zoological Survey of India and Botanical Survey of India. For animals, there are 1,10,167 species, plants 50,012 species, and both put together is 1,60,175 species documented so far in our country. So this is a very, very small number. We need army of people to document the resources that we have. Unfortunately, we have very, very insufficient people. If you look at even the dedicated organizations like Botanical Survey of India, Zoological Survey of India, then we have universities, departments. Many university departments are providing complementary data and doing tremendous work in this area. Now, group-wise percentage of the total species in India, if you look at angiosperms, it is 37% we have documented. See, this group-wise documentation also shows that where we have the gaps and where we need more people are special, experts in these groups. Of course, gymnosperms, practically we have documented all the species. There is hardly anything left. So we can say maximum another 10 or 12 species may be there in the wild, which are there in the inaccessible areas of the Himalayas. But in the plains and hills, we have covered all the gymnosperms so far. Pteridophytes, the number is around this only. It cannot grow beyond this. But the problem with the pteridophytes is it keeps producing number of hybrids. Number of hybrids are produced in pteridophytes, and this requires a careful study and maybe more and more new Natho species will be there in pteridophytes. Bryophytes, yes, we need more people. Only some bryophytes, lichens, some tourist spot areas are easily accessible areas have been surveyed and the documentation has been done, and this documentation is much, much less than what is actually existing in the wild. Fungi is like, it is, we need several armies of people to cover the fungi. Because I'll tell you, person who worked in the Botanical Survey of India, subsequently moved to Tropical Botanic Garden, Trivandrum, one Vasagowdar, he discovered 3 new families, 15 new genera, and about nearly 350 new species in one group. If that is the rate at which we are discovering new species and new families and new genera in some small order of meliolales in fungi, imagine the diversity that is there, still eluding us from discovering them. Then bacteria and viruses is a kingdom by itself, and we need a separate kingdom of people to document these resources. So this is the kind of distribution of representation, percentage representation of the species in India. With all this, I will not go into the families of other groups and all. I only to tell you, we don't have a single family that is endemic to our country. And one family which was new family which was discovered by Panigraha and Dikshit based on plants collected from North Sikkim called Brachycolous simplicifolius, which was part of the Rosaceae, but been segregated into a separate family called Brachycolaceae, which is now brought back into Rosaceae based on the molecular studies. So that new family also gone. So the recently 4 more new families have been documented, recorded as new. And the first one is a very distinct family which occurs in Australia and New Zealand and Tasmania, which is now found in the west coast or the western Maharashtra and Konkan region, based on the discovery of a genus species called Trithuria concadensis, that is Hydratelaceae, which is one of the primitive angiosperms now treated. Earlier, it was close to family Camelinaceae. Cystaceae is another family which is an extended distribution from the desert region from Pakistan. And Acaniaceae and Petrosaviaceae are the 2 species, which are 2 families which have been discovered recently by the scientists of the Botanical Survey of India. And they are found mostly they are recorded from Arunachal Pradesh. As I said, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, there are still many areas where we need to, inaccessible areas, where we need to go for intensive survey, and we need more people who are interested and bit adventurous type. Because these areas, they may look very close by. See, one hill to another hillock is very, but there is a deep valley. To reach the opposite hill, it takes 3-4 days, because you have to go through a circuitous route to reach that spot. So this is the kind of inaccessibility that we have, or we have to have helicopters present in service for dropping the people and picking the people in such inaccessible areas, which they do in Borneo. This is the Hydratelaceae. I'll not go into the details, but because the time is, I don't know how much time I have. Yes, almost 11, 15 minutes more, I think. This is Hydratelaceae member called Trithuria concadensis, which looks like a mass among the pebbled the flooded area of monsoon rains. Because this plant can be easily neglected or overlooked, but the people like Professor Yadav from Kolhapur, Shivaji University, he took interest in this. Raja battery. Then switch on. This has been discovered in 1994, and this is a very interesting discovery. And this being a primitive angiosperm, and most aspects of this have been worked out. I will not go into the details. This is Helianthemum lippi, a cystaceae which is discovered from the Gujarat desert region, and this is an extension of distribution from Pakistan and other West Asian countries. And this is the whole plant. And this is a recent discovery in 2017. This Brexnedia belonging to family Acaniaceae, which occurs mainly in the Yunnan region of China, and now it has been discovered. And this is discovery in 2018 is the Petrosaviaceae, which is a close relative of Liliaceae, and this is a plant which can be easily overlooked by the survey people or the people who are in the forest, because these are found in the forest floors, mostly saprophytic in origin. They depend on fungi for their nutrition. And most important thing that I have come now is the endemism in Indian flora. Because the endemic flowers, these Convention on Biological Diversity has given sovereign rights on all our biological resources, and especially these endemic species, because these endemic species are the unique resources. They are found only in India, and sometimes only in a confined area. If you take, for example, the Paphiopedilum drury, a lady slipper orchid, is found only in Agasthamala region of Kerala and Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, nowhere else in the world. And that is an important resource for the orchid industry for their hybridization purpose. That has now our resource, a great resource. Of course, it has been smuggled out. That's a different issue. But there are several other species which have been discovered and found only in India. And if any of these resources are useful for extracting or finding an active principle that is useful in making any drug in the future for any of the diseases, that is our resource. And we can earn millions of rupees once such a discovery is made. So therefore, the endemic species are very important. Angiosperms, out of 18,800 species, we have nearly 4,403 species. That amounts to 23.42% of the endemism that we have in our country. So gymnosperms, we have 12 species, which is amount to again nearly 14.5%. Pteridophytes, 235 species out of 1,307. That amounts to nearly more than 17%. And bryophytes, 22.28%. Algae, 26.23%. Lichens, 21.87%. Fungi, 23.53%. Bacteria and viruses, 8.87%. This percentage is as of today. If you discover more and more species, then our endemism perhaps will go much beyond these figures. Maybe 10 times or 20 times more than this, because we don't have people to work on, particularly the algae, lichens, fungi, bacteria. Or I would say, I don't say that we don't have people. We have people, but they are limited in number. And that number is not sufficient. And we are at this rate, with this number of people, it will take another 100 years to cover the entire diversity that we have in our country. Because if you look at the diversity that we have covered so far in our country, and the number of people involved in discovering this diversity, in the last more than 100 years, imagine the Botanical Survey of India started as a small garden in Calcutta in 1787. Until now, we have discovered only 50,000 species of plants. So this is something ridiculous, because we need a large number of people, particularly for groups like algae, bryophytes, algae, lichens, fungi, and bacteria and viruses. Bacteria and viruses is a separate kingdom. I would not really vouch for that, because we need a separate organization for that. And of all these endemic species that we have in our country, 3,600 species are endemic to Himalayas. So very, very true that Himalayas has been declared as one of the hotspots. And similarly, the Western Ghats, because three mega centers of endemism, three other mega centers are Eastern Himalayas, Western Himalayas, and the third one is the Western Ghats. Then we have 25 microcenters of endemism, and no flowering plant family is endemic to India, as I said. And 139 species, described plant species, known to have become extinct or only occur in cultivation. So they are either extinct or extinct in wild or cultivated. So this is the situation today, and we need more and more people to discover our diversity of plants, particularly the lower plants. So these are the three mega diverse centers. And then we have the Andaman Nicobar Islands, which is also equally rich. And out of nearly 2,500 species of plants that we have, 10% of them are endemic to the Andaman Nicobar Islands. Although Andaman Nicobar Islands has many things in common with the mainland, as well as with the Indonesia and Burma. These are the 25 microcenters. I'll not go into the details. And recently, the Botanical Survey of India has brought out the Endemic Vascular Plants of India, a book which gives you a number of families, 15 families, which are the dominant families in terms of endemics. The highest number of endemics are in Poaceae with 335 species, Orchidaceae 274 species, Leguminaceae with 274 species, and so on. And among the dicotyledons, Leguminaceae tops the list, and among the monocotyledons, and Poaceae tops the list. I'll not go into the details. There are about 15 families which are listed, which are endemic. Large number of endemics in India. So distribution of endemics state-wise, if you look at. So Tamil Nadu should feel very happy. Although Kerala has equally large number of species, but the number of ecosystem diversity, that the kind of diversity in Tamil Nadu compared to Kerala is much higher. So therefore, it supports much more endemics. And particularly, if you look at the Tirunelveli district and also the Nilagiri district and Kanyakumari district, these are the major districts for endemism. And the isolated the hills like the uh, uh, dry hills or the eastern Ghats also have some of the endemics, but majority are there in the western Ghats. Now, I told you my figures are up to December 9th. Of course, this is a world. Unfortunately, I have with the recently taken photograph where this has been released. Botanical Survey of India since 2007 and the Zoological Survey of India also from 2007 have been compiling all the new species discovered from our country in the form of what are called as the plant discoveries and animal discoveries. In fact, this job was done by the Royal Botanic Garden Kew earlier in the form of index cubensis, and even today they continue to do the document all the resources that are published. There are new species that are published from all over the world, whereas it is not so in the animals, but in plants we have a system where every species that is discovered on the planet Earth is documented. In India, so we have started what is called as the plant and animal discoveries. So this is released on the 5th June of every year on the World Environment Day. Initially, it used to be done by the President of India, and subsequently now Minister for Environment and Forest, Government of India, releases this on the World Environment Day and dedicates it to the country. And this is the latest one. Actually, it was released only some 2 months back because of this COVID problem. It was not released in June, but it was subsequently released. And this is the latest. And if anybody wants, they can get a copy from, download a copy from the NVIS Center of BSI. We have immense diversity. You name a wild crop relative, any crop you name, rice, sugarcane, banana. So you name our jackfruit. Many resources are there, which crop resources, which have been documented by the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. But there is no one for really documenting the wild plant, the ornamental plants. And a project was given to one of the universities in Maharashtra, Shivaji University. They could do only for a section of Western Ghats. And there are thousands of species, and none of them are domesticated so far by any of the. But an attempt was made by the Shivaji University, but which I will show you a little later. And you look at this. This is an endemic species called Alicicarpus belgamensis, one of the most attractive species, but it has yet to enter our gardens because all this is Cyanotis concordensis, again another endemic species, which is found in the plateaus of the northern Western Ghats. And this is such an attractive flower, but we don't have a place in our gardens. All our gardens are filled with exotic imported ornamental species because it's easy. Now our universities, particularly the agriculture universities, the horticulture universities, should take up the collection and the domestication of most of these species, which are very attractive. Look at this. This, if you go in this season to the plateaus in the Western Ghats, you find this Smithia hirsuta, which is called Mickey Mouse plant. Then look at these Murdanias, very beautiful. And the Ceropegias, we have about 65 species in this country, and almost 42 species are endemic to our country. And such is the diversity. These are climbers. They can be actually bred through breeding, they can be reduced into, there are several erect species, and the genes from erect plants can be transferred into the most beautiful looking flower plants, and these can be used as excellent ornamentals. So this is another, which are also called as fly trap flowers. This is one indigofera which occurs in the plains, particularly in the plateaus. And this is another Pinda concanensis. Recently, one more new species has been discovered from, again, Maharashtra, Ahmednagar district, Harichandragarh area, which are just naturally growing in most of these areas. These can be very good ornamentals, annual ornamentals in most of our places. And on the left side, this is one which was selected for practices were developed by the Shivaji University, and it has been cultivated and now shown or demonstrated that this plant can yield almost up to 2 to 3 lakhs per acre, and there is a great demand for cut flowers of this particular species. And this is a weed on the right hand side is the Pogostemon deccanensis, another endemic, is found in Western Ghats again. And this is what I want to say. And the last plant that I'm showing here with the thanking slide is the Saraka Ashoka, is the most important species, which is widely exploited and now has become threatened. And there are hardly few trees left in the wild, although it is widely cultivated, and there is a demand for the bark of this particular species. Thank you. Tangaraj. Hi. Hello. Hello. Tangaraj.
Yes, sir.
Could you hear me? Hello. Hello. Our ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. I have no idea. From this end it is okay.
Can everyone else hear?
ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ನನಗೇನು ಗೊತ್ತು. Hello. Hello, Tangraj.
Sir, you are audible. You are audible, sir.
But nobody is responding.
Yes,
Sir,
yes.
sir is just now disconnected and he will join with you. He is on the line, sir. Just speak to him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, I have completed my lecture. At least there should be some response, no?
Yes, sir. Just a technical issue. Just I'm joining, sir. Yes. Yeah, I'm in the meeting only. Just I'm joining.
My first lecture is completed, and if there are questions, they can ask.
Yes, sir.
No, my first lecture is completed, and
Yes, sir. Yeah, some technical issue. So just I joined now.
Oh,
So our participants, thank you for your wonderful lecture given just now. participants, they have posted a few questions in the chat box. I am representing their questions, sir.
Please.
So this is a question from Dr. Rasa. Our mangroves are reducing the pollution in the ocean, sir. Actually, he is from Egypt. So mangroves were identified in the Red Sea in Egypt. Will they reduce the pollution?
No.
This is a question.
They are so for certain pollutants, they are sinks of pollution, but generally they protect the sandy coasts of the coastal areas and also act as the breeding grounds for many fishes and other sea animals. We have not worked anything on pollution, but it's general. Generally, we know that it is they act as sinks of pollution because they are evergreen.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. One more question asked by the same participant. What are the most plant families documented in India? This is a question posted. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically the grasses, the legumes, Poaceae, the Leguminosae, and Asteraceae. These are the three major families. And there are other families which I can tell: Acanthaceae, Euphorbiaceae, Rubiaceae. These are the major families.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So with this, if there is no further questions, is there any question from the Google room? The participants who are in the Google room, if you want to ask any question to the resource person, please ask. Dr. Johnny, is there any question from your side, sir?
Johnny Tagore.
Yes, sir. No, sir. I'll ask in the next session, sir. So.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, we have split up large families, similar families, and some families are merged with, like Fabaceae, Cerenaceae and Mimosaceae are together. So in such case, does it not make a problem for studying?
Absolutely, there is no problem, because now Fabaceae or the Leguminosae has 5 different subfamilies which have been created based on both morphological and molecular studies. So there is absolutely no problem. But traditionally, those who are traditional taxonomists, who have strong roots in traditional taxonomic principles, may not like this submersion, merging of mimosides with the cisalpinides.
Yes, sir.
I know, but the molecule says that the evolutionary phylogeny, if you look at, they are nested within the cisalpinidae, and that's the reason why it is merged.
And one more question, sir, regarding this placement of monocots in APG. So they have placed this monocots between some primitive angiosperms and eudicots. So how you see this one, sir?
There is no problem. You see, matter whether the monocots or dicots, because we have been traditionally taught that there is only one cotyledon, and it is now the thinking is that it is only they too had 2 cotyledons. One is highly reduced.
Okay.
So therefore, you can see that monocotyledon, like which I was giving you an example of Trithuria concanensis, which was discovered, which was part of the monocotyledon system, and now it has become the anagrade or the primitive subfamilies of the APG system. So it is we have to change our mind by looking at the new molecules that are suggesting us that the monocotyledons cannot be placed away from the dicotyledons, or they are actually nested within the basic or the primitive angiosperms and the magnoliids and lily of seeds.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Johnny. Thank you, sir. So, Dr. Raja, actually, he tried to switch on the mic. Are you there, Raja? Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yeah,
sir,
Raja?
can you suggest some genera? Yes, sir. Sir, can you suggest some genera to for revision work?
Oh, I can suggest there are a number of genera which require taxonomic studies. You can take up many of the genera in Compositae which have not been worked out. And even if you take Leguminosae, see, Sesbania is one genus, although it is small, but it has not been thoroughly worked out.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I can suggest many genera. There are many which require revision.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Raja. Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions posted by our participants and asked by our Google Room participants. Thank you so much. With this, we wind up this session. We break this session for tea. So now the time is 11:35, I think. So we will start the session by 11:45 after the break. Thank you so much.
No, you will serve.
Please join us by 11:45.
Will you serve tea outside your Google room?
No, we can take our own tea. Just for relaxation, sir. Yes.
Okay. You let me know what time I should come back.
By 11:44, you can join, sir. We can start 11:45.
Okay. Inform all the people.
Yes, sir. Sure.
ಎಲ್ಲೈತ್ ರಾಜಾ ಇದು ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಂದೆಲ್ಲ ಇತ್ತಿದ್ದು USB ಡ್ರೈವ್ ಬಾಯ್ಲಿ ರಾಜಾ
Yes, sir. We can start, sir.
Yeah, I am going to start.
Open
I am going to start.
You are already presenting on something. Can you see separately?
Tangraj, can you see?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Slides are visible here also.
Oh, great.
So put it in a slideshow, sir.
I am doing it. Now?
Yes.
Clear?
Clear. Crystal clear, sir.
Oh. So this is, I'm going to speak on, then it's a sort of extension of my first lecture. We have been discovering a large number of new species, new records for our country. Records in the sense they are already known in some country, either in India or either in China, adjoining countries or outside this range. And they are the new records that we make, which I mentioned in the morning, earlier lecture, that like Academies, Cistaceae, and Trithuria, these Hydatellaceae, these are the families which have been discovered recently. But a large number of genera and species are also discovered in our country. And particularly from the species diverse rich areas in Western Ghats, Northeast India, and Himalayas. It doesn't mean that in plains also there are species that have been discovered, particularly from the areas which have been neglected for survey, or where very little survey, very casual surveys have been made in some of the dry areas, which I will show you in the pictures. But the last 10-15 years, we have been discovering a large number of species, and practically on an average 100 species. Hey Raja, book elita ಇದೆ ನನ್ನ ಕಾಲು. Now you look at this. In the last 1 decade, we have discovered 3 new families which are recorded for all of them are new records. 85 new genera. They include both the new records as well as the new genera, genera new to science. And then we have what are called as the new species. And the new species here I am listing, including those which are called as subspecies and varieties also. This is only for statistical purpose I have included them, but actually they include both infraspecific categories like subspecies and varieties also. Then you see the number of new records that are made in the last column, which include they are existing in the adjoining countries or countries outside or far away from India, but they are discovered in our country. If you look at the angiosperms, in the last 1 decade, 2010 to 20, but 20 doesn't mean that includes this year, because 20 is, I showed you the plant discoveries which were released 2 months ago. That is up to December 2019. So my figures is given here are up to 2019, but I am speaking in 2020. The 2020 figures will come in 2021 once the year is completed from 1st January to 31st December. So since reorganization of BSI in 1955, But BSI was existing since 1787. Although BSI as an organization was formed in 1890, and it was closed just before independence in 1937. It came to a total halt because there were no funds, there were no people, hardly 3 people to maintain the herbarium were there. So you can imagine a vast country like ours with 329 million hectares, with varied landscapes, varied wetlands, varied inaccessible areas in the Himalayas as well as in the Western Ghats. So it has been a tough job for us to discover, survey and discover this species. So now with the setting up of BSI and ZSI and many of the universities in remote areas of our country, a large number of people take an interest, but the number of people who are taking interest is just 1% of our country, not even 1%. So there are many new species to be discovered, and very few taxonomists are doing this job. And in the last 1 decade, or since 1955, because I am using this figure 1955 because Botanical Survey of India, which was closed after the British colonial rule, and then after the independence, it was reorganized in 1955. After that, we have covered these. So far, we have discovered 2 new families, 42 new genera, 1,790 species. In addition to this, now in the last 1 decade, from 2010 to 2019 December, we have covered the species that are listed in this table. Angiosperms, 3 families. Number of genera that we have discovered were 11, and about 744 species, including subspecies and varieties. And new records that we have made is 315 and 3 new genera. So this is the kind of statistics that we have because of the contributions made both by BSI and students and the teachers and students of taxonomy from university system. Gymnosperms is a group. I said we have almost completed the survey and documentation. In spite of that, in last 10 years, imagine 1 species per year has been published. So totally 10 species, and this is a group where these species are, most of these species are found, is Cycas. Cycas is considered as the dinosaurs of the plant kingdom. And the other genus which has yielded some species is the ephedra, which occurs at high altitude or the cold deserts. So the Cycas and the ephedra have yielded 10 species in the last 10 years. Pteridophytes, as I mentioned in the previous lecture, the number of hybrids are being produced by these pteridophytes in the nature. Apart from this, there are naturally occurring species in inaccessible areas, and we have been able to contribute 2 new genera and 33 new species and 31 new records. And bryophytes, we have 2 new genera and 45 new species and 105 species. Again, from bryophytes downwards to algae, lichens, fungi, bacteria, the number of discoveries are limited compared to the angiosperms. One problem with the angiosperms is we have covered almost 70 to 75% of angiosperms per country. So the number of species and new genera that will be recorded will be comparatively less, because we are now almost coming close to completing the survey of all the angiosperms or the flowering plants. And it's mainly the lower groups of plants where we have very little expertise. But in spite of that, in the recent years, number of people have been recruited in Botanical Survey of India, particularly for lower groups. And they have been contributing tremendously on discovering the new species and new records. In addition to this, even the universities have taken interest, university departments, and there many people are now contributing, and therefore, of late, in the last 5 years, the number of species in the lower groups of plants have comparatively gone up because they are covering more and more new areas. So in the last 1 decade, we have about 3 new subfamilies, 3 families recorded. They are not families described from India, but they are occurring elsewhere in adjoining countries, like mainly China and Pakistan. And they have been discovered for the first time from our country, these 3 families. But these 85 genera that we have discovered in the last 10 years, majority of them belong to bacteria and viruses. And 46 genera, you can imagine, if 46 genera in 10 years by some 3 or 4 people in the country discover the 46 genera, imagine if there is a full-fledged survey for conducting the survey work of microbes in the country, the number of species will be much more, number of genera will be much more, and even new families will be emerging through this study. So now we have about, in the last 1 decade, we have 1,816 species new to science and 1,155 species which have been recorded as new records for our country. And on an average, in a year, we are discovering nearly about 100 to 135 species, depending on the surveys conducted. Now, these new species, some new species described, I mean, I will not be able to display all of them here. A few of them which have been displayed, and I will not explain all of them. You just see on the top, you have what is called as the Ceropegias, and several Ceropegias have been discovered, Brachystelmas have been discovered, and Utricularia have been discovered. Then the crow lilies have been discovered, and number of species across the entire gamut of families. Even grasses, you can see several grasses have been discovered as new genera and species. Eriocolaceae, all the Liliaceae members, and this I will come to later. This is an interesting discovery of Crinum, which is very, very important, and they have a great impact in our in knowing our diversity, in utilization, in evolutionary studies, many other aspects, both academic and as well as economically important species that have been discovered. Not only, I'm only showing the only 2 slides of a few species which I have made here, but the number of species, if I show, I will be showing only, the entire lecture will take only showing the species. See, this species that you see here, and this is one of the Euphorbia species which have been from a neglected area, which I will show you later. Now you see in the Western Ghats, even common areas like where people are commonly going to places like Agumbe in Karnataka. You see, look at this. This Combretum on the top, the pink flowered or red flowered one, is the Combretum malabaricum, which was known for a long time to come, right from flora of British India. Now, this species, Combretum shivane, has been discovered recently, and this species is growing very much close to human habitations. In spite of that, people have not recognized, mainly because some could be, the reason could be, one who has surveyed may not be a specialist in this group. But unlike in the previous years, now many people are covering collecting the species and taking more interest, and there is a new discovering new species. For example, you look at this, a grass which is there in the western Kerala, and this grass was discovered almost 20 years ago, named after the then joint director, N.C. Nair, It is called genus, a new genus. It is called Silent Valley because it also occurs in the Silent Valley region, which is declared as a Silent Valley National Park as part of the Nilgiri Biosphere. And there was a lot of controversies about this Silent Valley. And now the controversies have been put to rest because of the interest taken by the government and to conserve that flora. And this Silent Valley genus was discovered some 20 years ago. But you imagine another, this was the monotypic genus. In the monotypic in the sense, a genus with a single species. But if you look at another species recently has been discovered called Silent Valley chandwadensis. It is another grass and further in the north in the Western Ghats by the Yadav group from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, where there is genus, the species, second species of this. So these are very, very, very important discoveries that have been made because we need to, when we go to the field, we need to do a very critical observations. And when you bring back the plants, also dissect and see the details much more critically than what it has been done earlier. Because earlier, the technology was much poorer in terms of microscopes and photographic equipment and things like that. But now we are equipped with to make the observations much better than what it was some 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Now you look at this particular grass. The one on the left side is a grass, is a very highly threatened grass confined to a small locality in Karnataka, the Jog Falls. All of you know that this was discovered almost in 1915, and now the species have been rediscovered only some 10 years ago. And while searching for this particular species, which could not be collected for such a long time, while searching for this, in Tilari Ghat in northern Maharashtra, Western Ghats, they chanced upon another species of the same genus called the Habbardia. This one is Habbardia. The left one is the Heptaneura and the right one is Habbardia diandra. You can see the photographs, the two anthers, which are very, very clear in this. So this is Habbardia diandra with such reflexed or recurved anther sacs in this, and you look at the glooms also, how variant they are. But basically, both the habit and also the habitat, they look alike. But when you thoroughly critically study, they look totally different. So this is Habbardia heptaneuron, and then this is what how the glooms look like. So Habbardia diandra and Habbardia heptaneuron, you can easily make out. When you go to the plateaus, the high altitude plateaus in Western Ghats, you will find a number of ephemeral grasses. They appear only just after rains and complete their life cycle before the onset of winter. And these species, many people have not overlooked during their surveys, and these species have been discovered recently. And from these, and they have a great role as fodder plants, as the wild relatives of cultivated plants. Now, another important genus is Vigna. All of you know that it's very, very important. Earlier, it was called Phaeolus, but Phaeolus is only introduced in our country. All the species of the Phaeolus came from Mexico and the Central America. But all the old world, particularly Australia, referred to a genus called Vigna. We know for centuries the Vigna seeds were found even in Jadaro. Vigna stipulaceae, tribal beta, aconitifolia have been misidentified in almost all floras published last 5 decades. Because we had a problem with the literature. We had not sufficient literature easily accessible to us. It was only in the Europeans had the literature access so easily. But specimens, and they have access to literature. So because of this, there has been for a long time, many species are mistaken identity are also there, distributed in agricultural fields throughout India. An alt was misidentified as Trilobeta or Stipulaceae. The above example indicates that sheer need by consulting the protologue or the first description of the species when it was discovered as a new species, and the type specimens, which are very, very important. And for all of us, the main problem was the type specimens were existing, are still existing only in the European herbaria, because most of our specimens are, because they are worked out by the Europeans, and the specimens were, important specimens were taken away to European herbaria, mainly the Royal Botanic Garden Kew, British Natural History Museum, Edinburgh Royal Botanic Garden, and the Natural History Museum of Paris, and several other European herbaria, which are where our specimens are represented. And we had no access to these things. It is not that easy to access these things. Although we have a program of exchange of specimens earlier, not now, because of the Convention on Biological Diversity or Biodiversity Act, we cannot easily exchange now. But prior to 2002, when we had no problem in exchanging the material, and they used to send loan for the study of the material. But again, because we have to, after our safe return of the material has to be undertaken. So there are many such issues for misidentification in our country. You look at these Vigna aconitifolia, the distribution I am just showing, which is mistaken for Vigna species. The same species is mistaken for Stipulaceae, same species is mistaken for aconitifolia, and now the technology and availability of materials, collection of materials, wide fields of access to online specimens, all these things have helped us to resolve many of the issues related to misidentification. Stipulaceae, and Trilobeta, and Indica, which is a recently described species. So this is how all these species were going under the name either Stipulaceae or aconitifolia. As about India, but aconitifolia and Trilobeta and Indica were also growing together, but people were unable to because of their a single species. Now look at I want to give you is the Vigna aconitifolia. On the right, it is Vigna indica, Vigna Stipulaceae, and the bottom right is the Vigna Trilobeta. Now corner, that is aconitifolia, you can easily mistake because of their resemblance in their morphology. But aconitifolia was also mistaken. Nobody accounted for the variation in the leaflets, but all of them were taken as aconitifolia or Stipulaceae. If you go to any herbaria in the country, you have this situation. But when they are critically studied because of the accessibility of literature, accessibility of type specimens, and the modern technologies like electron microscope and other things, we have been able to distinguish all of them. And now, as somebody asked me a question regarding the merger of mimosidae with schizoalpinidae, same way here they look almost alike, but if you look at their molecular study or DNA structure, they look totally different. Now, this is how they can be easily separated. Just I'm giving you a small examples how important these are. These are wild relatives of top plants, and we have to deal with even all other wild species of plants in the same fashion. Because then only we will be able to understand them better, understand their evolution, and the phylogeny of these species are very, very important to understand the close relationship species of crop plants and this. So if you look at the stipule structure, the flower structure, style structure, the seeds and the seedlings, give you a very clear idea as to how different they are. But these are all mistaken for a single species earlier. This is another species, Vigna sylvestris, which occurs. And this species on the Vigna sylvestris is the Sahadriana, a new species, was also mistaken for this species in all the herbaria, in all the floras. So somehow, because of the technology, because of the interest that has been focused on this particular genus, they have been able to discover the new species. See, look at this. Look at the camera also makes a trick, but you should have a keen eye for what are those things that we should be shown, the distinguishing characters between and are the similarities between the two species. So this is how the Vigna sylvestris and the Vigna sahadriana looks like. Now you see very clearly the flower structure, the stipe structure, the stem hairiness, and the seed coat morphology. Then the aerial portion that you see here, aerial portion. These are all very, very clear structures. And even the seedling stage, you see, look at the leaf. Look at the leaf here. Then Mucuna pruriens is a common species, very important species in terms of it yields. Although it is a very nasty plant, the fruits give a lot of itching when you come in contact with your skin because of the stingy hairs. But this yields an important drug called L-Dopa, which is perhaps the only known cure for the Parkinson disease or management of Parkinson disease. Now, I won't say cure, I would say it is management of Parkinson disease. You can imagine this Mucuna pruriens, which is common throughout plains of India, has 3% of L-Dopa, the active principle that is important for treating the Parkinson disease. Another species have been discovered, which is named after me, and this is also in Western Ghats, and there are only some 12 or 13 of these. It's a huge climber, no doubt about it. But this, imagine when the survey of all the species or when chemical screening of all the Mucuna species is done, pruriens has only 3%, and other species, there are about another 12 species or 15 species of Mucuna, and all of them have 3 to 5 range of L-Dopa. But this particular species, Mucuna sanjape, L-Dopa is about 7%. So how important these plant discoveries is demonstrated by this particular species, where L-Dopa can be go up to 7%, and there is a huge jump from 3 to 7. So these plant discoveries are very, very, very important as and when we can see. Another genus, which is very complicated genus, I would say, very tough genus, is the piper. The the pepper that we eat belongs to this particular genus, piper. And piper mengai, Phrenos, pachyphyllum are found in Singapore and Malacca, whereas Trichostachyon, reticulatum, and Galeatum are found in the Western Ghats. So these are the species which have been. Why I am showing this Malacca and Singapore species? These are the species. Their nearest relatives are in Malacca and Singapore. And Malacca is well known for spices right from pre-colonial period. And in fact, the colonial governments established only because of these spices. So we have discovered recently Dravidi and reticulatum, Galeatum, and Trichostachyon from the Western Ghats. Look at because again, you need to look at every part of it very carefully. Dravidi, you see the difference between the three species, which I am showing here, the spikes. So very distinct, but they were all going as simply piper Trichostachyon. So therefore, a critical study of survey and study of all these things are very essential. You look at now all cobra lilies or Aracemas, which are all looking alike. Sylvaticus is one species which has been there around, and all the species in Western Ghats, most of the species in Western Ghats are mistaken for these particular species, are either Longiconnectivus or Margaritifer. But if you look at their cytology, if you look at their chromosomes, they look so very distinct. Bandarensis is a new species discovered. Concanensis is another new species discovered. And if you look at their cytology, and very, very interesting. So these are all very, very, again, very important as ornamentals. They could be ornamentals. They also contain very active principles. The Nereocolon is another genus which has mostly confined to the plateaus and the cultivated fields in the lower plateaus, higher altitude plateaus and lower lateritic plateaus, mainly in the Western Ghats. But they also occur in Northeast India and other places. But the maximum concentration of species, there is a separate book on Eriocolon which has been published by the Botanical Survey of India, very, very covering about nearly 60 species. But after the publication of this, more than 25 species have been discovered from different parts of the Western Ghats and Northeast India. And this particular species, you look at, in spite of, as I said, these plateau species are mostly epimerals. They survive only for a short period of 2 to 3 months or maximum 4 months. Then they perinate. And this particular species, which occurs in the lateritic plateaus, produced large number of tubers, and these tuberiferum, and it is very, very important for their perination, and without that they cannot survive. I'll not go into the details, just chlorophytum or Safed Musli, which is a very important plant for medicinal plant for, and this has been brought and cultivated in the pots. And this chlorophytum, there are number of species now discovered. From Belgaum district of Karnataka, this particular species has been discovered, and this also contains similar active principle as the chlorophytum dorianum, which is called Safed Musli, which is in great demand for the herbal industry. So these are the species which help us to save the other species because they look alike, and at the same time they also contain similar principle. Then Dimpcadi, like this, there are number of species. I can give you, go on with the number of species. This is Dimpcadi goyens, and this is the flower variations are found both in Konkan region as well as in the Goa region. And this is another new species that have been discovered. I'll not go into the details. So this I would concentrate a little bit, because Aponogeton is a genus which is confined to all pools and lakes, water bodies particularly. They could be a temporary water body, it could be a permanent water body, but a number of species have been discovered in this also. I've just given appendiculatus, one recently discovered species, which is falling in the area. A huge nuclear plant is coming up in the Konkan region. And Satarensis, luckily this area, which occurs in the Khas Plateau, this area has been declared as a World Heritage Site. And this species, to my knowledge, I feel that it has been protected now well. And Brugeni is another species which also occur in the Konkan Plateau, where the seasonal the streams are there. Then we have Crispum, which is well known, Natans, which is well known, and Undulatus is another species. Now, this species, why I am showing, the tubers that are produced in these plants are a summer food for many people close to these wetlands, because they produce starchy tubers which are used by the people around these wetlands. Now, this Aponogeton brugeni contains very, very interesting embryo structure and all. I will not go into the details because it will take a long time for me. Let me not go into the details. This is Utricularia, and this Utricularia species, again, very common on the lateritic plateaus and also in the lower plateaus in the Western Ghats, particularly in northern Karnataka and Konkan region of Maharashtra and Kolhapur district of Maharashtra. You find a large number of species found in the lateritic plateaus. And all these species found to be very interesting, and a number of species have been discovered. Not about nearly 12 species have been discovered recently. And you see, Utricularia janarthanam, it is named after Janarthanam, a professor in Goa University. He is the first person to revise the genus Utricularia for India. And a number of species subsequently, after he joined Goa University, he and Professor Yadav have discovered a number of species, and this particular species has been named after him. You see the number of there are traps, underground traps, and also the tubers that you find in this, because they cannot assimilate nitrogen from the soil, and therefore they develop these traps to trap insects for their supplementing nitrogen from these insects. Now, this is another genus called Brachyma, which occurs in the dry areas among the grasses, particularly among the grasses. A number of species have been discovered of late, because in the season, if you go, you will be able to see the flowers. But if you miss the season, you will never be able to identify these, because it camouflages very well with the grasses, and you will mistake it for grasses. Brachystelma edulis was discovered in 1994, originally from Thailand. You can imagine, Thailand, it was discovered from Thailand, and it shows significant variation in flowers, orientation of flowers. And when the study was made critically from the Western Ghats again, particularly from the Konkan region, we found that there are two other species called Malvensis and Nauroji. But again, further critical study and also molecular study, when it was made, the Malvensis and Nauroji are seems to be similar, but the morphological character is still very, very clear. This is another species also from Western Ghats, particularly in Konkan region, which has been among the grasses, they get mixed up so easily. Brachystelma Vartaki, named after a well-known taxonomist, late well-known taxonomist, Dr. Vartak. And this is Brachystelma mahajani. And only just last week, Dr. Venu from Botanical Survey of India and Prasad from Botanical Survey of India have published a taxonomic revision of all the brachystelmas of our country. These brachystelmas, although they are so very distinct, people sitting outside, particularly in South Africa and Royal Botanic Garden, Kew, they have merged this genus with the Ceropegia, where the flower structure, I showed you Ceropegias earlier in my lecture, and Ceropegias are so distinct, and this has been merged. And the reason mentioned is the molecular study and the corona structure, because the floral corona is very much resembling the corona of the Ceropegias. You look at this Brachystelma vartaki, you look at the corona here, because I don't know, I will not be able to show these things properly here. I hope you will be able to observe here. Look at the corona and the pollinia, that of this vartaki, which is so distinct. We have been neglecting many of the dry areas. We think that dry areas, there's nothing grows, and we hardly visit. And when we visit in such a way that these in the season when they are flowering, we do not visit. We go after the rains when it is green, and we cover all the grasses and other species that occur. And when you look at these succulent euphorbias carefully, this is from Gokak district in northern Karnataka, where there are dry areas completely. You look at the habitat that you in this slide, you will come to know that but these species have been neglected. Nobody collected them properly, and this took quite some time to look at these species. And when they are critically studied by one group of people, and you look at this, the habitat is the habit is totally different from other species that you are shown in this picture. And this Euphorbia gokakensis, which is endemic only to a small area, not more than about 1 square kilometer. So these are very important because they produce hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons could be both medicinal as well as for biofuels. And this is that Euphorbia gokakensis. When critically studied, and these discoveries help a lot in learning, in finding out economically important species and useful species. But again, we can only, as taxonomist or a floristic survey person or a floristic man, I will only say that these species can be identified. But I cannot take this to the that mucina, which has higher percentage of L-dopa, and this Euphorbia gokakensis, which has higher concentration of the hydrocarbons, to produce a new drug or a new biofuel. So I cannot do it. It's our job is to survey, identify, and give it to the people who have to take it further. So this is very, very important. You look at this. This is one areocolon. I was talking about areocolons which are found in the plateaus, lateritic plateaus, wherever soil is slightly thinner, and you will find this. And this species was hiding for such a long time because it occurs between small bushes. So one has to see them only when it is in flowering, and it is found to be a new species called Areocolon pedunculata. Of course, areocolon, as of now, we don't have any economic importance, but it has to be analyzed for various purposes for which it is used. You can see that another important, medicinally important, is Camptorrhiza indica. It's what is called as colchicine, which is important a raw material for the And these Camptorrhiza, many species were, and now this Camptorrhiza indica, and they have been separated out from the allied Iphigenia. So Camptorrhiza strumosa is one species which occurs in the Africa, South Africa, and Camptorrhiza indica, which occurs in the western part of India, and these are the distant relatives. Now, we should know as to how these people originated, these species originated separately in different parts of the continents. And this is a very interesting study that is been made, and it is also called as out of Africa hypothesis, which gives you it was diversified over the years. So look, species are brought together, Camptorrhiza indica and Iphigenia indica, they cross easily. So now the question is whether to treat them as two distinct genera, whether when the hybrid is produced, which is fertile, then how the species, the genera will stand. So only way is to check and breed these things to eliminate these some of the new genera that have been created. And number of species that have been discovered of late were found to be hybrids. Camptorrhiza indica, Iphigenia stellata, and these are the hybrid. And this is work out of interest. Some taxonomists have been doing this, but all taxonomists cannot have this place, the facilities and privilege of doing this work, because you have to have a madness for doing this kind of work to produce results of evolutionary importance. Crinum is another very important genus. Again, South Africa, you have Crinum trifidum, and in India, we have Crinum brachynaema. It is highly endangered species. It is found only in the lateritic plateaus close to Mahabaleshwar in the northern Western Ghats. I'm not showing many of these species from the Himalayas or Andaman Nicobar Islands, because I thought it is easy to give examples of the Western Ghats which are nearby. This is one species recently described. It is called Crinum malabaricum, and the leaves of this particular plant is about 15 feet long, almost 4 meters long leaves are there. And this area, this is only found in small streams in Kasaragod district of Kerala. And its nearest relative is found in Thailand, and it is this is underwater. You see, on the right side is how the entire plant bends through the flow of water. The left side, you can see that has come out, are the spathes that has come out. And these are the students who have collected this species, have been enjoying, and look at the length of the leaves that are present. So why I am showing this is yields a galanthamine compound, which is very important in treating Alzheimer's disease. So this and analysis of the tubers for galanthamine content of all the Crinum species in our country, this particular species has the highest percentage. So imagine if the galanthamine is to be produced, natural galanthamine is to be produced. This is the only plant which has high yield of galanthamine. So this is impact of such new species on the economy, or the discovery of drugs, or the discovery of Crinum. I will not go into the details of this, because I already explained that the species in India and Thailand, Thaianum. But this habitat is completely erased now. Now, I don't want to go into the details. This is the only forked species. The forked, because there is no other species, and the nearest species is found in Madagascar. So these species, we have not got the seeds of this species to cross and hybridize them. But you look at the number of chromosomes that are there. So in Satarensis, in Decca 56. I'll not go into the details because it will take a long time. These are the Aponogeton satarensis and the hybrids that are produced. And this is the Decari of the Madagascar region, which have been able to cultivate here. And you look at the hybridization that is been done between these two species and produced. And what the hybrid has about 2n is equal to 66. You can see 26 and 56 combined hybrid produced Tn is equal to 20. So this is how the new species get evolved. So the hybrids slowly, if they develop the adaptability and survival capacity, so the new species get evolved. And for new species, it takes thousands of years, because life on Earth has originated some 2 billion years ago, and same way to produce a new hybrid or a new species, it takes a very long time on the Earth. I will not go into the details. These are the embryos. I will not go into the details of the embryos of recently discovered the Aponogeton natish. I will not go into the evolutionary aspect of that. And this is that Trithuria concadensis, which the genus was known only in the New Zealand, Tasmania, in the Australian continent. Now, this has been discovered from the Konkan Plateau, and this looks like a moss plant, which I mentioned already. This remains unnoticed by botanists until 1994, you can imagine. Members of Academies have unique features. All other species of the family are restricted to New Zealand and Australia. Hydratelaceae are basal angiosperms and fall under nymphiales. Phytogeographical significance is how it has come here. This is where the most interesting aspect. Is it due to it was existing and the continents have drifted and the species remained for such a long time? Or is it due to the migratory birds which have brought the seeds in their legs or their guts? So there are many speculations on this, but it will take time to understand. And being phytogeographically interesting, this particular species have been studied for various aspects of embryology, cytology, anatomy, even phytochemistry. All these aspects. In the last 5 years, 20 interesting papers have been produced after this discovery of this particular species. I'll not go into the details again. Again, this. No, I'll not go into the various aspects that have been, and you can see in the systematic position, it is placed. Nymphiales are between monocots and the eudicots, in the eudicots, and the Hydratelaceae is with the Cabombaceae. Earlier, Hydratelaceae, as somebody mentioned, that it was part of this Camillinaceae. Now it has been separated into a separate family, which is placed along with the basal angiosperms. I'll not go into the details of this. This is the lake where very interesting species have been discovered. And this area, which is there in the Konkan Plateau, is coming under the establishment of nuclear power plant. And even when they have put the compound all around this area, we went there and we collected most of the species. And you see one of the most beautiful species which have been discovered. And in small Heliocoris concordensis, Aponogeta nateshi, and Pogostemon, which is yet to be named, and these Coriandra elegans. These are the species in 1 hectare area of the small wetland that is present, which is going under the nuclear power plant has been discovered. So what should we? These are the very interesting examples. What should we do? How are we going to? We need to survey the entire area of Konkan Plateau, where such water bodies are there. Water bodies, if we find this, we can say these species are safe. Otherwise, these species are never safe. They may disappear before they are used for any purpose. You look at this, just I've taken out of the 4 species, I've taken this particular. It's a sight to see this particular species. This is just above water level, the stem starts producing the inflorescences and flowers. And these flowers are so beautiful to look at. And see, that's why this is in Jaitapur. You can see that place called Jaitapur in Konkan Plateau. And this is from Kolhapur. But these 2 species are, this Chelidoni is a common species, it's well known in India and occurs widely. But the Ciritandra, the Coriandra elegans, which has about 175 to 250 stamens, which are looking like a dancing girls. So if you see when the wind blows, if you see I have a videograph of this. It's a marvelous looking plant. So such new species are discovered in areas which are going under the developmental activity. So this is how the elegans look like. The name itself indicates that is one of the most elegant flowers that have been discovered in the recent times. See, look at these variations. This is variable. Within that area, it is highly variable. You look at the stamens that are there, the number of petals and things like that. As I said, we are neglecting some of the dry areas. So if you go to eastern Karnataka, northern Karnataka, there are many dry plateaus. There is a very important World Heritage Site called Badami in northern Karnataka. There is a plateau above this particular Badami cave temples. It is of the Chalukya period. And there are unique plants there. When one boy is working on the flora of these plateaus and dry areas there. And imagine 9 new species and new varieties, including varieties, have been discovered from this plateau. Nobody has surveyed except even during the colonial period, only the foothills of this has been discovered, because from distance they look like rocks only, and there is no soil on the top of it. Nobody went there, and number of plants were growing on the top of it. So when this was surveyed, you see, look at this Portulaca species. That were 2 Portulacas were discovered: Portulaca badamica, Portulaca Lakshminarasimhani. And these are and in addition to that, several euphorbia species and several Acanthus species have been discovered from this particular plateau, which was neglected for a long time. So we cannot neglect any small area which has a unique ecosystem and which yield, definitely if we can critically study these plants, yields large number of new species. This I've talked about a small area compared to the whole of India. So it could be Rajasthan desert, it could be a cold desert in Lahore Spiti and Ladakh area, and it could be a coastal area which is nearer to Thoothukudi, or we cannot neglect any part of the country for survey and documentation. And this is how the new species have been discovered. And I have only shown species that are discovered in the last 1 decade, and their impact on the economy and other herbal industries, and the importance of new species. So, for example, galantamine. Galantamine is such an important drug for treating Alzheimer's, and If we find a species which can yield higher percentage of natural galantamine, there is nothing like that. We need to cultivate those species and extract galantamine or L-dopa from Mucuna sanjape and other species. So I will not go in. There are large number of other species. As I mentioned, nearly about 1,100 species have been discovered in the last 10 years. And this year also, if you look at any of the international journals and Indian journals, large number of new species are being discovered. But don't think that all of them could be really distinct, because there is a need every 5 years or every 10 years, we need to revise the group so that we will know with more and more additional material that is being collected and more critical observations that are being made and more focused studies on a particular group of species are being made, and that will yield us the correct status of the species, both as economically important species and also the taxonomic status of these species, and most importantly is the conservation status of that species. So understanding implications of species, several dimensions of species are unique evolutionary product, because it's a product of several thousand years, parallel unparalleled chemist, because they produce a large number of chemicals which are important for our producing drugs and treating diseases of humans and animals, and witness of evolutionary history of life. Phytogeographical significance, like what I mentioned about Trithuria concordanensis or genus Trithuria, different functions in an ecosystem. If you look at on the right hand side, the picture shows these plants grow only in the flowing waters, and the water, these are seasonal streams. So the water dries up in the after the winter or in the summer. So all these plants have to complete their life cycle, and what role it has to play in the ecosystem is very, very, very important. And why it is confined to only that ecosystem, why it doesn't grow outside this ecosystem. Range of tolerance, as I mentioned, it could be very dry area, it could be wetland, it could be a evergreen forest, it could be a dry forest, it could be a scrub forest. The tolerance of the species is very, very, very important. Spatial distribution is another I mentioned within our country as well as between the continents. Phylogenetic relationships, invasiveness. There are many species that we introduced, like lantana, for example, which is introduced and invaded all our forest areas. Similarly, eupatorium, they have suppressed the distribution of many of the local species. At the same time, they have helped some of the species to survive in their shade. So beneficial nature of all these species are very, very important. So biological capital for mankind are both wild plants and animals. So we need dedicated people, extensive field surveys, critical observations, analysis of various implications of species. So I thank you for your patience. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, sir. So
yeah, thank you, sir.
Any questions, any doubts, or any clarifications anybody wants, they can ask me. Raja, you asked me a question earlier for suggesting a genus. I tell you, you touch any genus, even which has been revised recently, you will find a large number of interesting things.
Thank you, sir.
So, because we are in the southern part of India, so can you specify any specific genus from southern India, sir? That would be.
See, for example, Heliocarpus. Okay, Heliocarpus sir. Is a very good genus.
Okay, sir.
It's a tree genus. You'll have to see which group you want to work. That is one thing. If you have interest in a particular family, I can suggest the genera. Or if you want to just take up just like that, it will not help you, because it will take a long time to get into the genus, to understand the genus, to get into the taxonomic revision. So you can write to me. My mail is there. You can take the mail, and you can write to me, and you tell me the group that you are interested. I will suggest a good genus. Any other question or any clarification from?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your enlightened presentation. We hope your presentation has immensely enhanced the taxonomical knowledge of each and every participant. So we are grateful to you, sir, for your enlightened talk. Thank you so much. So with this, we wind up the morning session. So dear participants, so we posted the feedback link for all sessions, for these 2 sessions taken place in the morning. So please fill the feedback form. And also we posted the YouTube link for the afternoon session. Please make use of that YouTube link for entering. One more information to the participants. If any participant wants to give the feedback orally, please send a message to the WhatsApp group, or please give the message in the chat box. We will provide the Google Meet link for your oral feedback. I repeat, if anybody wants to give your oral feedback about the program, so please give your concern. We will give the Google Meet link for your oral feedback. Thank you so much. With this, we wind up the morning session, and we will meet you after a break. The afternoon session will be started exactly by 2 o'clock. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.